So is the Switch 2 launch going well or not? There's stock available seemingly for everybody who wants it, but also there's stock available for everybody who wants it. This feels really odd. I genuinely thought that every one of these would be impossible to grab. The fact that there are so many readily available around me just feels weird. Like, this is not normal. I even opened up OfferUp to see what's going on with the scalper world, and there was like maybe 3 posts, which is very abnormal for a console launch. Now, they were charging $700. I made them offer of $400 for the bundle with Mario Kart, just to see what comes of it, but nope, they were not having it. But even better, their counter offer was that I would pay them full price plus tax. And again, this is not normal. Scalper on day 1 of a console's launch is just trying to recoup their initial investment. But that being said, it's entirely possible that with more and more people finding out that the Switch 2 is readily available, they're going to start picking it up. It's entirely possible that people have realized, oh, this console came out, they actually have them in stores, I don't gotta fight for 2.5 years to pick up another console. They might go for it. It's all very unpredictable at the end of the day. A lot of the stores around me are selling out, and not just around me, around most of the United States. Seemingly they're selling out, just not immediately. Now, there are also a lot of people saying that stores around them have them available and they got plenty in stock and nobody showed up to buy them. And for the most part, it seems like those locations are either in the middle of nowhere or they are in lower income areas. Which makes sense. There's a console launching that's very expensive during one of the worst economic times that we've seen. And oh yeah, that's the timing that Nintendo decided they were going to charge more than they've ever charged before. So that makes full sense. And then, you got the usual complaints like they didn't have any proper launch titles because everybody thought automatically that Mario Kart World was going to be the big system seller. And it might be, but I don't think Mario Kart World is a system seller. I've always said that I think when you buy a Nintendo console, you buy Mario Kart. You don't necessarily buy a Nintendo console for Mario Kart. And that's not always the case, obviously. There will be people that will say, no, I only got my Switch for Mario Kart, and that's fine. But there are also a lot of people that don't. You know what else had Mario Kart? The Nintendo Wii U. So yeah, it's not always guaranteed. Whatever the case may be, it's actually been really interesting to kind of just get a feel for how people are going on about this launch. And I think everybody that wanted one got one. But like I said, everybody that wanted one got one. And that's just not normal these days. But that also could just mean that the console is off to a slow start. Because I have some very fond memories of a time not too long ago. Actually, it was 19 years ago, so I guess it was long ago. In mid-November of 2006, in North America specifically, on the exact same weekend, a mere 2 days apart, was the launch of the PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii. A younger Nintendine, who was in his high school years, decided that he was going to be grabbing both consoles. Well, actually, my brothers and I all pitched in and decided we would be grabbing the Wii together. And then my older brother decided to buy a PS3 along with his best friend. They were gonna split it 50-50. It was simpler times. We decided our best option would be a Walmart. And we figured we were young, we were adventurous, and we would just camp out both times for both consoles. This would actually be the first time we decided to camp out for anything. We had never done it before. I don't know how common it was prior to that, but this was a pretty new experience for us. And seeing as how it was November, it was freezing. We were grossly underprepared. If I'm not mistaken, the rule was that during business hours, you could stand inside the store, but as soon as it closes, you gotta be outside, and that's when it was freezing at night, obviously. I don't remember the exact details, but I know that in order to grab the PS3, we had to camp out for 2 nights straight. They had limited stock. I don't remember what the number was, but it didn't seem like it was that many, somewhere in the low teens. But yeah, you had to be there for 2 nights if you wanted to get your PlayStation. And I'm pretty sure you didn't really have a choice between the $600 one and the $500 one. It was mostly either all of them were the $600 ones, or it was just more of that and fewer of the $500 ones. Unless you were one of the first few people in line, you didn't really get a choice. You just got whatever was left over. But for certain, 2 days prior to the PS3 coming out, you had to camp out overnight. This was, of course, my experience. Now, when we had come back for the Wii, it was a whole different experience. We showed up 2 days before and nobody was there. We showed up again around the mid-afternoon of the day before the launch and still nobody was there. So we actually sat first in line for the Wii. We sat for about 2 hours. I think like 1 or 2 other people had joined us. They said they were going to have, I think it was 25 or 26 Nintendo Wiis available. After sitting for 2 hours, the store rep came out and gave us each a ticket. Told us if you come back exactly at midnight, you're guaranteed the Wii, you don't need to camp out. So we came back at midnight. There was a line of like 50 people by this point. We got to cut straight to the front of the line, and they obviously had to turn away half of the people. And I distinctly remember the person that was working there specifically said, we weren't sure this thing was gonna sell because nobody lined up the way they lined up for the PS3. I don't know why. That thought always just stuck in my mind, and that whole situation stuck in my mind. The PS3, with its awful launch, was the hyped console because it was coming off of the PlayStation 2. The diehards were certain people were willing to pay money for it. I still remember seeing these people arguing about the amount of cores that it had. And I actually remember while I was lined up for the PS3, telling them that we're gonna come back and buy the Wii in a couple days, and they just laughed at me. They're like, why would you buy a console? Nobody's gonna buy that thing. You don't even gotta line up for it. And I'll be honest, when I got my Wii at 12 a.m. or 12:01 a.m., can't remember, but I was the first one in line, and I wish I kept that receipt. But when I was in line for that console, I remember thinking to myself, like, was I the only person in the world hyped for this thing? Is this just gonna be another generation where Sony dominates? Or I guess at the time, the Xbox 360 was doing better through most of the life cycle, so whatever, it was gonna be a non-Nintendo console again. But no, the Nintendo console was not the one that had all of that initial hype that you would expect. For the Nintendo console, people thought you could just show up an hour or two before the store opens and you'll be able to grab it. And they were proven to be completely wrong. So what does this mean exactly? I'll tell you what it means. It means that console launches are probably a bad metric for a system's long-term success. And I think it's pretty obvious because the Wii U was very hyped up and was sold out early on in its life cycle as well. So I've already kind of made my predictions about how the Switch 2 will do. I thought it would be impossible to grab because every single one that goes on sale would be sold immediately. It seems like that's not necessarily the case yet, but I don't know, a lot can change over the next few days when everybody realizes that they can go grab one. But it also could mean we look at one of the worst launches in Nintendo history. It could mean we look at one of the worst launches in modern gaming history. And I think if you account for how the gaming world is now versus how it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, a Switch 2 underperforming now would be significantly more embarrassing than any of the failures that came before it, or any of the poor launches that came before it. But for obvious reasons that I've already mentioned previously, I still think this console is going to be a success, because I think Nintendo is going to find a way to make it appealing to people. The most obvious thing they could do is a price drop, but if all of a sudden they start offering bundles with extra games or accessories of some sort, that could realistically move some units as well. But I've repeated this over and over again for the past 24 hours or so. The Switch 2 does not feel like any launch before it. It doesn't feel like any Nintendo launch before it. And it's very intriguing. That's why I go out of my way to call different stores to see what's available. That's why I'm looking at what the scalpers are charging. That's why I decided to go to Best Buy in the middle of the night. That's why I am obsessively following online forums to see who's buying what and from where. And at this point, I got friends invested in this. Not literally invested, like they're not paying any money for me to post a video about it, but they're genuinely curious. They want to look up if the Switch 2 is going to succeed or not. Because, like I said, it's intriguing. Like, these guys bought their Switches. It's funny because they're Sony fanboys, and they're the ones that went and pre-ordered their Switches. Meanwhile, the main one of us that's actually a Nintendo fanatic is boycotting. And I think that says more about the state of Nintendo than anything else could, to be honest. Also, a few videos ago, I mentioned that I might be getting a Switch 2 for Father's Day. I have since confirmed that I am not receiving a Switch 2 for Father's Day. That was a thought some family members had, and it turns out they spoke to one of my other family members to ask him to find a way to buy one, and that particular family member told the rest of the family that I was doing this whole boycott on YouTube because he actually keeps up with my channel for the most part. So there will unfortunately not be a Nintendo giveaway coming up for a Switch 2. But I will update you guys on what I do get for Father's Day. If I get anything for Father's Day. I don't really expect any gifts. My kids are toddlers, and I got a lot of older sisters, and my wife, obviously, so sometimes they like to spoil me, but sometimes we just go out to eat, and usually I'll still fight to pay for the bill because that's the kind of brother that I am. But yeah, I was kind of excited at the thought of giving away a Nintendo Switch 2, and then when I said that in the video, I got a lot of backlash from people saying, why would you give away a gift that you received? But it's kind of hard to explain the dynamic here. And now I'm going off on a completely irrelevant tangent to what the whole topic of this video is, but I don't think my older sisters have played a video game since playing Super Mario Bros. On the NES in the 1980s. And my wife, believe it or not, is not even remotely a gamer. She's my biggest fan. She'll click on every single video that I upload. She will let it run in the background of her phone for me to get watch hours, but she will never have the volume on. She finds it to be extremely nerdy. And that's because it is extremely nerdy. But she has her murder mysteries and I have my video games, so everybody's happy. Well, I'm happy. She's terrified. The point is that even if they were to buy me a Switch, number one, they really wouldn't care if I gave it away or sold it or whatever. Like, they don't, it's whatever. It's your gift. You can do what you want with it. That's kind of how things fly around here. But the second thing is, I don't think they would ever know if I even played that thing or not. Like, if I put it in storage and just never touched it, or if I decided to sell it, or if I gave it to somebody, they would literally never know. I don't even know if they know that I'm boycotting Nintendo. Like, yeah. I understand why so many of you were like, no, don't give it away. It's a Father's Day gift. I get it. I really do, but it wasn't that big of a deal. In any case, I thought I actually would have more to talk about today, but I kind of want to give it a day to see what some of these hands-on impressions look like, some of these reviews. I want to see what the general masses are saying, the hardcore Nintendo fans, the non-Nintendo fans. Like, I saw that RGT85 was really saying that Mario Kart World was amazing, and that kind of threw me off because I thought he was just a hater. And I know that's precious coming from me, but I honestly don't really know his channel too well. I just saw that he had a positive thing about Mario Kart, and I was like, this looks different than most of the thumbnails that pop up. But yeah, I might just take it easy tomorrow. I say that now, but it's entirely possible I show up and all of a sudden I'm putting out 3 videos. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. Thanks again for listening, and I will catch you guys on the next one.